Okay, so I have this idea, it's a little crazy, so bear with me, about going across the country on a road trip leading up to the election. Are you down to kind of come along?
I mean, if you're crazy. Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, Connor. But if we have that into consideration, I mean, yes.
Ready to go?
So here we are, embarking on a 15-day, 15-state road trip across America before the biggest election in modern-day history.
We're on our way to save democracy!
And while the world is baking sourdough bread, we thought we'd head to the streets to talk to real Americans across this country.
Let's go, girls. You were one of the choir members actually singing for Joe Biden. How did that feel?
No, I feel like the last person that wants to stand with a gay Canadian immigrant is a proud boy.
And people call you MAGA? Is that the...
Mega hole.
Oh, I heard MAGA whore. I have a master's degree, and I don't even understand what this means.
It's hard. I do 8 hours a day.
Having conversations with everyone from psychics to former neo-Nazis. What was that pivotal moment when you said, I cannot be a
15
Nazi
states and
anymore?
more than 10,000 miles,
Queens
all
of
in a
Germany.
Dodge Caravan. That's how a couple of filmmakers traveled across America in the week leading up to the 2020 presidential election.
For their documentary, 1 Week Till Doomsday, they interviewed everyone from pastors and protesters to Trump supporters, QAnon believers, Proud Boys, and farmers. Joining us tonight, the filmmakers behind the documentary, Connor Malbeuf, who's a Canadian living in California, along with Bibi Couceiro, who's in Portugal. Thank you both for joining us. Connor, can you tell us what it was like to just get out on the road? What sparked your interest in this documentary?
Well, as a Canadian in the US, I mean, I absolutely love American politics. I thought of this crazy idea. No one has covered an election like this before. What better way to see the country and understand the state of the country before an election than getting in a minivan, driving across the country and talking to everyone along the way. No one was off limits, for better or for worse.
Bibi, when that phone rang and in the sort of trailer, we see Connor calling you. Did you know this phone call was coming? Did you know you were going to get this invitation, or was this an out of the blue thing and you decided, all right, I'm in?
Out of the blue. Connor just calls me once in a while sometimes, and this time he was just like, oh, I have to call you, I have this idea. And he made it seem very, a normal idea. And suddenly it was to, travel the whole of the US in a Dodge Caravan in the middle of a pandemic. And it was, it was just crazy, out of the blue completely.
What was it like for both of you to work together for that long, Bibi?
To work for that long together? Wow. To work together, like we really had to, understand each other, kind of compromise. Also, we were sleeping like 3 hours a day. It was definitely a challenge. It was a challenge, but because we were encountering just such eye-opening situations, eye-opening stories and everything, I think it worked very well. And I'm very thankful to have worked with Connor in this.
Connor, what would you say the biggest challenges were? You were talking with QAnon believers, Trump supporters, partisans on either side of the political equation. In America, they call themselves the United States. We know it's a divided state. What did you see as your biggest challenge in making this?
I mean, first and foremost, we were doing this during a pandemic. So everyone on this crew was putting their lives on the line. Right. And also, not to mention, none of us had health insurance in this country at that point. So we were really struggling to, put this together in a safe manner and really trying to put on the best documentary ever. I mean, it's challenging because you're speaking to every side of the aisle. I was speaking to a Proud Boy that doesn't even think, gay people should be legal. So, it was a lot of hard conversations. I sat in front of Christian Walker, one of the biggest gays for Trump, blacks for Trump. And he was basically, I had to have those tough conversations with people on the other aisle. Even though I didn't believe in some of the stuff they said, it's about the compromise and letting everyone have their moment. And this is about uncovering America's untold stories. So definitely having those conversations with people.
Connor, what was the most surprising untold story you encountered?
One of the most incredible stories I witnessed, we were in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It was a man named Lyndon, who was an indigenous man in Santa Fe. he had been barred from the reserve, and he couldn't sell his products, even though Haagen-Dazs was open across the street. And it was devastating, right? These indigenous people in Santa Fe, New Mexico were barred from leaving their homes to make a living. And it was just the way the government had handled COVID-19's effects on the indigenous population was disgraceful. And seeing that firsthand, I mean, there's a clip in the trailer where I'm just bawling my eyes out in the car because it was so sad to hear. You know, you really are uncovering these stories for better or for worse.
Bibi, Americans have just come out from a president who, attacked the media at every turn, calling it fake news if it was news he didn't like. Did you ever feel at all threatened or concerned for your safety as a journalist, talking to people who, as Connor's been mentioning here, perhaps did not agree with anything you either stood for or were asking?
I think before going to the trip, I definitely felt a little bit scared because of the unknown. I didn't know what I was going to expect. We were going into Trump rallies, we're going to Biden rallies, we were going to, having these conversations with people that were saying that some immigrants shouldn't be in the country, saying that they're not feminists, how some women should have less rights. So that was definitely a little bit unsettling. But I think as soon as we got there, as soon as we were actually having these conversations, it got less and less scary. I don't know why. I think it was just, you're there with that person. It doesn't matter if they're from a totally different perspective than you. You can sit down with them and have that conversation and actually try to, I don't know if change that perspective or not, but at least show your view to them.
Yeah, and you didn't know what to expect. No one knew what to expect on election night. I'd love to hear from both of you. Bibi, what was election night like?
Election night was not what I was expecting. First of all, at a certain point of the night, there was a lot of party. We were staying very close to the Black Lives Matter Plaza, where most of the journalists were at. There were people dancing on the streets. There were people singing, playing music. There were people from there were Christians, there were Black Lives Matter, there was just everyone there. And it was just a big party, even before even knowing who won. And then at a certain point, things got a little bit, at a certain point, got a little bit more scary. There were a little bit of protests across the city. But it was, in my opinion, I thought it was going to be wilder. But yeah, Connor, your opinion.
Because we didn't know the outcome that night either, right, Connor? So how did it unfold from your perspective?
I mean, the documentary takes a big spin, and when people see it, you'll understand. We're in DC, we're expecting this pivotal moment, and all of a sudden, we don't have anything. And we have a flight booked to go all the way back to LA. So we have to, actually in the trailer, you see us going all the way back to LA and then all the way back to New York to sort of finish off the documentary. But I mean, it was exactly what a documentary is supposed to be. It's off the cuff, it's improvised, you take every day by day. And election night was, as Bibi said, it was extremely exciting, and then it became extremely worrisome. All the Democrats, all the independents were like, I think Trump's going to win. And it suddenly became very dark, and no one knew what was going to happen.
Wow, Connor, Bibi, what a road trip you took, what a story you're telling. I look forward to see the full documentary soon. Thanks for being here on CP24 Tonight with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.